Okay, here we are, the long overdue and much requested. I'm going to critique a resume. You're going to watch my thought process as I go down the entire resume, and then I'm going to show you the full resume that I completed on my own individually that I'm now going to give to this person. I've changed all the contact information so you don't know who they are. Sandy Matrix is a fake person, although this is a real resume. But before we get started, I want to show you two resources over here on thebeancounter.com. This is thebeancounter.com/course. And if you check this out, this is a really great resource for anyone who's looking to get hired by Big Four accounting firms or any other of the public accounting firms. I've got 5 resume templates in here. One of the resume templates I'm going to be using today to rewrite the resume. And so you'll see that along with some others. You can literally choose them. They're not templates like I downloaded them on the internet. I made these templates myself. I've used them with other people. These things work, and you can get 5 of them right here in this course. The course is $250. You can learn more about it in the video above when you check out the page, or $25 a month. The other resource you can look to is the resume services. You can come over here to thebeancounter.com/resume-services, and all these links will be down below this video. You come over here and you can see for $250 I will personally meet with you twice. The first time I get to know a little bit about you, hear your story. I then build a resume, cover letter, and action plan for you. And then in the last meeting, I basically discuss with you what the next step should be and what my thought process was for everything that I put into your resume and cover letter. And the reason for that is because you work with me, but you're going to have to be telling people about your resume and about your cover letter and why you crafted it the way you did. And so we want to be clear on the vision and on the methodology that we use. And so we have those meetings to do that. So you can check both of those services, but for now, let's get to it. Okay, Sandy Matrix. I'm just going to be reading down the resume and telling you all my thoughts. If you want to pause and look at anything in particular, feel free. But the first thing I noticed right off the bat was this is a very interesting way of presenting the name. I personally did not like it. I felt like it detracted from some of the other interesting points of the resume. And, the name isn't super relevant. I want to remember your name, but I don't want it to distract from the rest of the resume and some of the really good points that this person has to offer. So you'll see how I would format it. I'd like it to be there and to be pronounced, but to not be distracting, which I thought this was a little bit. I also changed all the contact information here, but typically I like contact information and name to be centered and the rest of the resume to be left aligned. And now I saw the next section here, profile, which I think is a little bit like background. It also talks a little bit about the objective. I've never really seen this before. Typically, what I do see is objective in this section, and I do like it when people do that. It's important in accounting because, depending upon your point in the process, are you looking for a summer leadership conference? Are you looking for an internship? Are you looking for a full-time position? Okay, well, let's say you're looking for an internship. Well, are you looking for it in the spring or are you looking for it in the summer? If you're looking for a full-time job, are you looking for it in September? Or are you looking for it in January? So I want to know what is it that you want, and I want you to make that very clear to someone in an objective here. You can go ahead and pause and read this. I still don't know exactly when the person's graduating, exactly what position they want. And frankly, I got a little bit distracted by reading all of this, all of the italicized text. It's a little hard on the eyes as well. So I would say to scrap this, make a short objective that now I know exactly what you want and when you want it. That would be my recommendation, and to make this an objective section, and you'll see all of that in a moment. Now we're down here in the education section of the resume. Typically important, but the most important thing is the GPA. And most accounting firms are going to want to see your overall GPA as well as your accounting GPA. Now this person has a good GPA, 3.5. Any firm is going to be like, okay, check the box, this person's good enough for us from an education perspective. They are also going to want to see your accounting GPA. If your accounting GPA is 3.2 or 3.1, that may raise some questions. If it's higher than 3.5, I would put it on the resume. If it's lower than 3.5, I would be careful. If it's lower than 3.3, 3.2, then I would not put it on the resume and follow that up with a discussion point. Have a story for why the GPA might be low. Maybe there's some challenges in your family. You had to travel home for a while. Who knows? Maybe you work full time. But for now, the 3.5 looks good. It definitely draws me in. The formatting here is a little bit confusing though. I like that this was bolded, so I know that you're doing business management concentration in accounting. To me, it's a little confusing. Is that a bachelor's of science in accounting, or is that a bachelor's of science in management? with some accounting classes, kind of like a minor. I would try to make that a little bit more clear. I'm not sure. I haven't spoken with this person through all the points, but that's just something I'm thinking about when I look at it. I like that we've included some other points here. I personally might put these in a different section, which is what I've done in the updated resume, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And I got a little confused. There was a random date here, which, then there was no date below. And I was a little confused by that, and I also, I didn't think this date needed to be here at all. But if there was going to be a date here, I think it needs to be consistent with the date below as well. Now we're going to go down to this section, additional training, and this was a little bit challenging because we're in the education section still, but then we're in an additional training section, and I got a little bit confused because I wasn't sure, are all of these related to the university? I know VITA may be, may not be. This 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, East Stroudsburg, sounds like it is because it's the same university as above, but it raised more questions than it did otherwise. Also, with these courses, I wasn't really sure when these were going on. So it raised some more questions. I think we're going to chop out a lot of this for the final resume. It's just not a lot of it's relevant. VITA is very relevant, and we're going to want to include some of that information and a little bit more about that. That's also been included in the work experience section. So I think when you're doing these type of things, something like VITA, which for those of you that don't know is a place where you can go volunteer and do income taxes for people that don't have very high incomes, can't afford a traditional tax preparer. Try to include in one section. It's up to you to really define it for something like that because yes, it is volunteer experience, but it's literally like a job. So I think put it in one or the other. And then for some of these extraneous experiences, again, it's not going to be super relevant unless you are really in some sort of leadership position or you're really taking charge. If you just sat in on a training somewhere, unless it's specifically related to accounting, might not be super relevant for these recruiters. They're looking for some very specific points, and we'll go over all that in the next resume. Related coursework. I think this is great for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience to just show their courses. And I do think that this formatting was a little bit challenging to read it. I've included this in many of the resumes with the people that I've worked with. I also think that a lot of these courses that aren't accounting related aren't really relevant. I don't think that human resource class, general statistics are going to be relevant. I think you should keep the things financial, managerial, accounting. Business law you can keep because that is related to the CPA exam. Economics, you can take that out. Principles of marketing, take that out. I would take out quantitative business analysis, leave in all the remainders. Maybe you could take out financial management as well, but I want to see the accounting courses only. And that would just give me a good gauge and give the recruiters a good gauge for where you are in the process. Have you only taken your first 2 accounting classes, or are you really getting towards the end? And it can get confusing sometimes because just because someone is a junior or a senior doesn't mean they've taken all that many accounting courses. A lot of times they have to take them all in their final year. And I just, as a recruiter, want to see how many you've taken. Now we get to the part, and when I'm scrolling down here, one of the first things I noticed when I first looked at this resume was, ooh, the biggest fail of all. The resume is longer than 1 page. And I spoke with a woman about this on the phone when we were discussing the resume, and I think she knew. She'd listened to some of the bean counter stuff. She said, I know my resume is longer than 1 page, but bear with me. And I am bearing with you, but that is an absolute no-no. Your resume can never be longer than 1 page. If you were trying to work in public accounting and you were just graduating. I mean, think about it this way. When you go to a career fair, you give somebody a resume and it's 2 pages. I mean, what did you do? Did you print it on the back? I mean, did you staple it together? Do they have to flip it over to see the next page? It's all very cumbersome. And frankly, they're just annoyed by it. And so never, ever, I don't care what the reasons are, never have your resume longer than 1 page. The other thing that was a major red flag here was that we had, the VITA experience, and then we had 3 other positions, none of which were accounting related, which is okay, that's totally fine. But the red flag was we went all the way back to 2004, which it looks like this individual, when I come back up in the education section, is graduating in December 2014. At least that's what I gather here. Now, I'm not sure. Let's just assume they're graduating in December 2014. There's no reason to go back 10 years from a work experience perspective. What I would do is only include information that goes back to when you started your bachelor's. So 4 years, 3 years, however long it takes you. So I would really only go back then. So when we're looking at the resume here, Chico's customer service sales representative, okay, 2011, probably started this degree in 2010. Okay, right here, started this job in April 2010. That's perfect. And you can see here, April 2010 to November 2010, that doesn't then start another job immediately. That's okay. I mean, when you're in college, people don't expect you to have a perfect, I quit this job and I started this job. When you get into the workforce, a lot of employers do prefer that. But when you're in college, really any experience is good. And I don't particularly care what the bullet points say. I would like for the non-accounting related positions to make them accounting related somehow. I like some of these things, performed inventory procedures once per week. I'd like to see something about cash handling responsibilities. And if you can't get anything accounting related, then I just want you to focus on some of the interpersonal things that you did with the other members of your team or with the customers, or maybe with providing great client service. Those type of things can shine out. I don't spend a lot of time getting into these details here about these bullet points because, to be frank and honest with you, really no recruiters read them. What the recruiter does when they come to the resume, they say, okay, when are you looking to graduate? Do you want an internship? Do you want a full-time job? What was your GPA? Did you have any work experience? What courses have you taken? And that is probably going to be it. And then they're going to just try and make conversation with you. They're not going to read this resume. Many of them are looking at, when they go to a career fair, 100 plus resumes at that point in time. And when they go back, they're just looking to categorize the information and get everybody's feedback to see, hey, who made a great connection with someone and did that person have good credentials? A good GPA, maybe a little bit of work or leadership experience in Beta Alpha Psi or an accounting internship or something, or VITA. That's really all they're looking for. They're not going to read this from top to bottom. And so the formatting is important. The key points that they want to hit on is important. And let's go ahead and look at what I did here in the next resume. So here it is. This is the final resume that I came up with. Now, I did not rewrite all of this information, but you can just see already how much more clear this resume is and how much more polished it is. It's all one page, and it allows someone who's reading this to get to know this person very quickly and in a much more succinct manner than last time. As you can see, the name is not distracting, but it's clearly the name. It clearly stands out. Here's a little trick here. I always add a tagline. This is something that I'm not aware of anyone besides the Bean Counter doing, but this is something that really stands out. A recruiter once talked with one of my coachees who I helped with their resume and said, wow, this tagline is great. Is there any way that I can, my daughter is actually going through recruiting right now. Is there any way that I can put this on my daughter's resume so she can use it? And the person said, absolutely, no problem, but it really stands out and it really adds a definition. This is just an example. Empowered by education, driven by excellence. You could say driven by experience, driven by work ethic. I mean, come up with something that fits with your story. For this individual, I think they've had quite a bit of work experience. And it looks like they've done well, met and exceeded daily sales quota, 90% achievement. They've done some excellent things. They've also got the education. They've done a lot of the coursework. So I wanted to say empowered by education, driven by excellence, but it's really up to you, whatever you want to make it. Again, I put here, combine my education and committed work ethic to excel in a full-time assurance role at X company. If you're going to a career fair, you should know beforehand which companies are going to be there and make a specific resume for each company. If you're emailing a company, obviously you know who you're emailing, so you should put that there as well. If you have a preference, you should also put to excel in a full-time assurance role starting January 2014, starting September 2015, whatever the case may be, the date on here would be huge as well. It's not totally required, and if you would take a summer or you would take a spring, then that can be a discussion point with the person. But if I'd like to do a summer internship or I'd like to start in September 2015, then put it on here. The work experience section, I include only some of the experiences, and as I mentioned, I only went back to 2010. I cut out the experiences before then. They're just not really relevant when you look at the education. And I put the titles in bold, and then the rest of the text I did not bullet point. And you can see on the previous resume, it was a little bit, the bullet points that list out all of the explanations really draw in the eyes. But I don't want them to read that because frankly, it's just not super relevant. I mean, the title tells them so much more than any of the bullet points that you put there, and very few people are going to read it. Some people will, so you need to make sure they're good, but I really would like them to just fall away, and rather than read volunteer income tax assistant and then start reading bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, I don't want that. I want them to read volunteer income tax assistant. Oh, I don't want to read that paragraph. Okay, sales rep. Okay, oh, I don't want to read that paragraph. Teacher's associate, so on and so forth, and then get to education. I don't want them reading this. They can. You need to make sure it's good, but I don't want to draw their focus to that any more than we have to, because I want them to get to the other points of the resume. You see also how I've made these very bold and pronounced lines. It's very clear to see where one section ends, where another section begins. That's super important for them. They are wanting to get through this quick, and then they're wanting to spend the rest of the time getting to meet you, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them to figure out your work experience, your education, so on and so forth. When we get down here to education, I always try to put 2 columns. I just think it looks very nice, and I think that if you have a bachelor's degree, you can use the other column for your master's degree. That oftentimes looks very, very good. Oops, I've made one mistake here. This here should actually be aligned with this. So if we were to actually take these bits here, I would actually move this over a little bit and make that aligned, so it's sort of clear and consistent all the way through the resume. But I bolded the Bachelor's of Science, Business Management, and Accounting. I put "and accounting" rather than concentration in accounting. Again, this is something that is very technical based on university. You need to make sure you're doing the right thing. I hope that this isn't a minor in accounting, that this is actually a full bachelor's in accounting, and I made it present more in that manner. Also put the expected graduation date, the accounting GPA, and the overall GPA. These are the huge points that they're going to be looking at. And that needs to be on the resume. If it's good, I put 3.75. I don't know what this individual has. If it's above a 3.4, put it on here. If it's not, leave it, and then make sure you have it calculated so you can answer. Accounting coursework, you see how much clearer this is to see than in the last resume. If you want, you can go ahead and pause and check the time and go back and look at the other resume. This one is just much clearer. I can easily see which courses they've taken, which courses they haven't. I'm not even sure they've taken all these courses, but you can really just change this to make it whatever you want. I almost always, if you're looking for a job in public accounting, I almost always include a section either alone, or I include this as part of another section where I say plan to complete all 4 sections of the CPA exam by X date. All that says is that, hey, you know that there are 4 sections to the CPA exam, and you have a plan to complete it. It shows that you care about things that are important. Now, if you have a CPA or not, frankly, it doesn't matter from a getting hired perspective. They don't expect you to have it, and if you don't have it, it's not a strike against you. If you do have it, it's not really going to help you that much, because they're mainly evaluating you on, do they like you? Can they talk to you? Would you present well to their clients? And do you have some of the base pillars that they're looking for? Again, namely GPA, and if you have a lower GPA, that's fine, as long as you can compensate with relevant work experience, leadership experience, community service experience, preferably leadership opportunities and experiences in all of those areas. And that's what they're looking for. It's not a big deal if you have a low GPA. You just need to have compensating factors. And then at the end here, I went ahead and just put skills and honors. Now this is generally the least relevant area. This is used to fill up the page. And you can really, the thing I like about this resume too is that you can use these sections in the work experience area, and you can really tailor them. You can tailor them in terms of their length to make the resume as long as you want. One other thing that I always like to do when I'm going down a resume is if I've ended areas, and I see already that I've made some mistakes here, and these are things you have to comb over with a fine-tooth comb many times, and I do it, then I have the coachees do it, then I have them send me a final version, and we work together on it because you need to make sure that every bullet point is right. But you can see here I included a period, and then here I included no period, and then here no period, no period. But then when you get down here, I included a period, and then no period, no period, no period. There's nothing wrong with doing one or the other. However, in general, I would recommend doing periods, obviously, for these sentences. And if you want, when you get down here to these sections, you can do no periods. But for the sentences, I would absolutely do periods, and we had sentences all up here above. And then we had no periods on the bullet points. Now, if you want to put periods on the bullet points, that's also fine. It's really up to you. Just make sure you're consistent throughout the resume. But that is really it. I mean, in a matter of time, you can use the templates in the Bean Counter course, or you can work with me to make sure we're tailoring it specifically to your experience. But when I look at Sandy Matrix's new resume, what I see is someone who's been involved. She's got involved as a volunteer income tax assistant. She's maintained work experience throughout her time in college. And while doing that, she's maintained a really great GPA. She's also got a lot of her courses done. She's also gotten a lot of, she also knows that she needs to pass the CPA. She knows there's 4 sections. She's got a plan to do it by a certain date. She's ahead of the game right there. And then she's got some other information here about organizations she was involved in, honors that she's received, and skills that she has. And this is a great resume. And this is someone that if you impress them by a great conversation and asking a bunch of questions and being really curious about their firm and enthusiastic about the opportunity, there's really nothing impeding you from getting the position. With that in mind, if you have any questions for me, you can reach me at andrew@thebeancounter.com. I hope this has been instructive and helpful. This is just one example. Every person's situation is a little bit different, but I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into my thought process. Again, 90% of the resume is how it's formatted and how it looks, and making sure that it's easy for these people to find the information that they're looking for right off the bat. I hope that that's been instructive. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me, andrew@thebeancounter.com, and I will talk to you soon.